Carl Jung, one of the founding fathers of modern psychology, taught us that the events and people in our lives are not random. He believed that the outer world reflects the inner world, that every relationship is a mirror, revealing to us what is unhealed, unintegrated, or unconscious within ourselves. When someone leaves you, rejects you, or betrays you, your first instinct might be to believe they destroyed something inside you. But Jung would suggest otherwise. He would say, they didn't break your heart. They revealed your wound. The wound isn't new. It didn't begin with them. It might have started years ago, perhaps in childhood, when you felt invisible, or when love was conditional, or when you learned, consciously or unconsciously, that to be loved you had to become someone else, quieter, prettier, more helpful, less needy. That version of you, the one who had to earn affection, is the one who still shows up in your adult relationships. This is what Jung called a complex, a core pattern of thoughts, feelings and behaviors rooted in unresolved emotional trauma. Complexes are like emotional echo chambers. They hold the stories we tell ourselves about love, worth, and identity. They are the unconscious scripts we act out in our closest relationships. When someone leaves, your heart aches. But often, what hurts isn't their departure. It's the story their departure confirms. I'm not enough. I always get left. Love always leaves. I was stupid to believe it would last. These aren't facts, they're echoes, and they come from a wound that existed long before they did. That's the truth most people miss. Jung said, we are not what happened to us. We are what we choose to become. But you cannot become anything until you understand what shaped you. The pain of heartbreak is real, but the source of the pain is often not the person who left. It's the unmet needs they triggered. It's the shame they stirred. It's the inner child who was reminded once again that love can vanish. Let's be clear, this is not about blame. This is about awakening, because if someone can walk away and leave you shattered, the question is not, why did they leave? The question is, why did I build my self-worth around their presence? And that question takes courage. Most people want closure, answers, apologies. But real healing begins when you stop looking for closure outside of yourself and start searching for the wound within. Take the example of someone named Sarah. She dates people who seem warm and charming in the beginning. But over time, they pull away. They become distant, unavailable, or critical. And every time, Sarah ends up broken. She tells herself it must be her. She's too intense, too emotional. But in therapy, Sarah begins to uncover a truth. Her father was emotionally distant. As a child, she learned that love felt like longing, that to be close to someone meant to be anxious about losing them. Her heartbreak wasn't just about her last partner, it was about a lifetime of chasing closeness she never received. This is the work of the unconscious. Jung believed that we project our unhealed parts onto others. We don't just fall in love with someone, we fall into our old wounds, into our unmet needs, into our unresolved fears. And when the relationship ends, we think the pain is about the person, but it's really about the wound. This is why heartbreak can feel so much bigger than the relationship itself. You might have only dated for a few months, but the grief is immense. Because it's not just about them, it's about everything they touched in you. They activated your core, and that core, that place where your shadow lives, is full of stories you haven't yet rewritten. Jung's concept of the shadow is crucial here. The shadow is the part of ourselves we hide, repress, or deny. It's where we store our shame, our pain, our unworthiness. Most of us don't even know what lives there, but relationships, especially romantic ones, have a way of dragging it into the light. And that's what heartbreak does. It opens you, exposes you, reveals the raw places you've worked so hard to protect. But here's the good news. What is revealed can be healed. You cannot heal what you won't face. And that's what this person, this heartbreak, offered you. An invitation. Not to run, but to stay, to look, to feel, to finally meet yourself. Because when the fantasy falls apart, what you're left with is the truth. The truth that you've spent years looking for someone to make you feel whole. The truth that you've equated love with performance. The truth that you've feared being alone, not because it's lonely, but because it forces you to face your own reflection. And facing that reflection, that's where healing begins. As the Persian poet Rumi wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." It sounds poetic, but it's more than just metaphor. It's a psychological reality. Pain, especially emotional pain, is not merely something to avoid, numb, or run from. It's a portal. It's a signal from your inner world calling your attention to something you've neglected for far too long. Heartbreak, in particular, is a kind of emotional MRI. It reveals everything underneath: the fragile self-worth, the unresolved attachment wounds, the stories you've been telling yourself since you were a child. The stories that sound like, "I'm only lovable when I'm useful. If I'm abandoned, it's because I'm not enough. If I try harder, they'll stay." But here's the truth. They didn't create the wound, they exposed it. We often believe someone broke our heart, but most times all they did was tap on an old bruise, a pre-existing fracture in our sense of self. Their behavior, whether it was rejection, emotional unavailability, betrayal, or silence, didn't cause the pain from scratch. It revealed it. Let's go deeper. Psychologically, Carl Jung emphasized that the unconscious holds vast amounts of repressed emotion, our shame, fear, unworthiness, and unmet needs. He called this repressed part the shadow. Most of us don't even know what lives in our shadow because we've spent years hiding from it. But intimate relationships have a way of dragging it into the light. When someone loves us inconsistently, disappears, or devalues us, and we feel shattered, often we're not responding to this person alone. We're responding to what they awaken in us. That feeling of abandonment that traces back decades, the emotional blueprint that says love must be earned, the child who never got the reassurance she needed, the evolutionary imprint. Let's bring in biology. From an evolutionary standpoint, humans are wired for connection. Thousands of years ago, our survival depended on it. Being cast out from the tribe wasn't just sad, it was lethal. So our brains developed an intense sensitivity to social cues, especially those related to rejection or abandonment. This is why, neurologically, emotional pain lights up the same areas of the brain as physical pain. When someone ignores your message or leaves you, your brain doesn't just register it as a mental experience, it treats it as a threat to your safety. That's why your stomach tightens, your chest hurts, you can't sleep, your system is in survival mode. What's worse, this kind of pain doesn't fade easily. The human brain evolved to remember pain that came from rejection because it used to be a matter of life and death. Today, it's more emotional than physical, but your nervous system doesn't know that. It still sounds the alarm. So when someone exposes your wound, the body doesn't just ache for them, it aches for survival, for reassurance, for the feeling of being enough again. But here's where we regain our power. We can update the script. We no longer live in tribes. We are not dependent on one person's affection for our survival. But to internalize that truth, we have to face the wound they revealed. This is what most people try to skip. They jump from one relationship to the next. They numb the ache with distractions, with social media, with productivity, or worse, they chase the person who triggered the pain, hoping that if they come back, the pain will go away. But it never does. because the pain was never about them. This doesn't mean they didn't behave poorly or cause harm. It means their absence didn't create the ache, it amplified it. And so the path forward isn't chasing the person, it's meeting the wound. But that requires solitude, space, slowness, means sitting in the discomfort, letting the emotions rise, feeling the anxiety, the grief, the anger, not to wallow, but to learn. What did they bring to the surface that you haven't faced? What belief about yourself did they confirm? What pattern did they mirror? It might be a pattern of choosing people who breadcrumb you because your nervous system is addicted to inconsistency. That same inconsistency that you called love as a child. Or maybe it's the pattern of seeking partners who need fixing because somewhere deep down you believe love is something you earn by being useful. Or perhaps it's the pattern of falling for people who are emotionally distant because intimacy, real intimacy, feels foreign, maybe even frightening. These patterns don't make you broken, they make you human. They are echoes of survival strategies you adopted early in life. They served you once, but they no longer serve the adult you are becoming. And so when the person leaves, when the silence returns, this is not your cue to chase, it is your cue to rebuild. Not from a place of needing to be chosen, not from a place of performing perfection, but from a place of truth. This truth says, you are worthy. Even when you're not perfect. You are lovable, even when you are grieving. You are whole, even when someone walks away. And this wholeness, it doesn't come from someone else coming back. It doesn't come from an apology or an explanation. It comes from returning to yourself, from choosing yourself again and again and again. That's individuation. That's Jung's process of becoming whole. It is the peeling back of every mask, every I'm fine, every performance, every false identity you built to survive. It is the radical act of saying, this is who I am without the role, without the applause, without the validation. It's uncomfortable, it's messy, but it's real. And in that realness, you find your power. You realize they didn't break me, they broke the illusion that love is something you must earn, the illusion that your value depends on someone staying, the illusion that healing comes from being chosen by someone else. When those illusions shatter, you're not left with emptiness, you're left with truth. And that truth, that's where the rebuilding starts. They didn't break your heart, they revealed your wound. That truth can be hard to hear, especially when you're in pain, especially when it feels like someone took everything you gave and walked away without a second thought, especially when the grief is so loud that it drowns out every voice of reason. But Carl Jung wouldn't tell you to drown it out. He'd tell you to listen to it. Because pain isn't your enemy, it's your guide. It's not random. It's rooted in something deeper, older and often unspoken. Jung believed that every emotional trigger is an opportunity. Not for control, not for revenge, but for insight. He once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This means the people you love, the ones you feel drawn to, and even the ones who hurt you, are not accidents, they are mirrors. What they reflect isn't always obvious, but often they reflect parts of you that you've buried, your abandonment wounds, your feelings of unworthiness, the little child inside you who learned that love might leave at any moment. So when someone triggers heartbreak, the pain may not be about them at all. It's about what they touched. It's about the invisible scar you didn't know you were carrying. Heartbreak isn't just emotional. It's physiological. Neuroscientists have found that the brain processes emotional pain and physical pain in nearly identical ways. When you go through heartbreak, the same regions in the brain light up as when you suffer physical injury, especially the anterior cingulate cortex and the insula. This is why heartbreak literally hurts. why your chest feels heavy, why food loses its taste, why sleep becomes impossible. You're not overreacting. Your brain is treating your breakup like trauma because to your nervous system, abandonment is danger. For most of human history, being left meant death. Our ancestors survived by forming tight tribes. Being exiled from the group meant vulnerability to the elements, predators, and starvation. So we evolved to treat social rejection as a survival threat. That wiring still exists. When someone withdraws their affection or presence, your body interprets it as, "I'm not safe." That's why it's not just sadness you feel, it's fear, panic, desperation. You're not just grieving them, you're grieving the loss of emotional safety, and your body is sounding the alarm. But that panic and fear is rarely about the person in front of you. It's about all the times you've felt discarded, unseen, or unloved, and never fully processed it. This person didn't build your wound, they just peeled the bandage off. Sigmund Freud called it repetition compulsion. We keep reenacting the same emotional experiences, hoping for a new outcome. We chase people who don't choose us, hoping that if we can just win them over, we'll prove we're lovable. But Jung went deeper. He said these aren't just patterns, they are calls from the unconscious. You're not being irrational, you're being called, not to chase someone else, but to turn inward. When the illusion breaks, when the fantasy of forever dissolves, you begin to see the deeper layers. You begin to recognize beliefs you didn't know you held. Maybe you believed love had to be earned through perfection. Maybe you thought being needed was the same as being loved. Maybe you thought rejection meant you weren't good enough. None of that came from the relationship. It came from somewhere earlier, somewhere formative. And this heartbreak is just the latest mirror reflecting all those unexamined beliefs. Jung called this the complex, a cluster of emotions, memories, and beliefs stored in the unconscious. You don't choose your complex, but your complex chooses for you until you become conscious of it. And now you are becoming conscious. Healing isn't poetic when you're in it. It's ugly. It's crying in the shower. It's journaling the same questions every night. It's sitting with the urge to text them and choosing silence instead. It's not about looking strong. It's about being real. Jung never promised enlightenment would feel good. He said it would feel like chaos, like destruction, like a shedding of every false part of yourself. Because what dies in heartbreak is not just the relationship. What dies is the version of you that needed it to feel whole. And when that version falls apart, you begin to rebuild, not from panic, not from fear, not from longing, but from truth, from the knowing that your worth is not tied to who stays or who goes, that your heart does not have to be earned, that you don't need to be someone else to deserve affection. You're allowed to feel lost, you're allowed to grieve, but grief is not regression. It's a sign that you're becoming more you than ever. To choose yourself doesn't mean to never need others. We are social beings. But it means not abandoning yourself to get them. You stop betraying your voice to keep someone's attention. You stop shrinking so you won't be too much. You stop chasing people who reflect your old wounds, and you start attracting people who reflect your healing. That shift is subtle, but it's everything. Longing often masquerades as love, but they are not the same. Longing is rooted in emptiness. It says, I need you to feel okay. Love says, I see you, but I don't need you to complete me. When you begin to love yourself, not in a buzzword, surface-level way, but in a deep, embodied way, you stop searching for someone to fill you. You start offering yourself the love you once begged for. You don't get to change the past. The silence came. The message was left unread. The ending arrived, but you do get to change the meaning. You get to stop telling the story that you were left because you're unlovable and instead start telling the truth that this person helped reveal the part of you that still believes you need to earn love. And now you're healing that part. So no, they didn't break your heart. They cracked it open. And from that crack, light comes in. Not all at once, not with fireworks, but slowly, gently, like dawn after a long night. And that light, that's yours. It always was. You're not healing to get them back. You're healing to never abandon yourself again. And that, Carl Jung would say, is the beginning of individuation, the moment you stop looking outward for validation and start looking inward for truth. Because the pain you feel is not punishment, it's potential. The wound isn't your end, it's your opening. And if you're willing to walk through it, not around it, you'll find something more valuable than their love. You'll find your own. And in that finding, something sacred happens. You stop needing to be chosen because you finally chose yourself.